The most important thing I have learned about inclusive design was not learned in a lecture hall or a conference room or from a policy framework. It was learned in Japan. Over 25 years ago, I moved to Japan. I returned to the United States 8 years ago, but I spent more of my adult life there than anywhere else. And although Japan shaped me profoundly, it was never my home country. I am not Japanese. I will never fully belong to its social architecture. That permanent, though often gracious, outsideness became one of the most important educations of my life. Because when you live outside the assumed center of a system long enough, systems stop feeling invisible. You begin noticing the seams, the assumptions, the places where the official story and the lived experience diverge. Japan taught me many things. It did not teach me to rest. Japan has karoshi, death by overwork, a term coined because overwork-related death became common enough to require its own language. According to Japan's Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare, there were more than 1,300 recognized cases of overwork-related deaths and serious health disorders in fiscal year 2024. Globally, the WHO and ILO estimate that approximately 750,000 deaths annually are connected to overwork. And yet, Japan is also one of the world leaders in accessibility infrastructure. The country passed the Barrier-Free Act in 2006, requiring both public and private entities to improve accessibility. Tokyo's transit systems are now among the most wheelchair accessible in the world. With tactile paving, accessible restrooms, and universal design integrated into infrastructure itself, not appended afterward as an accommodation. That contradiction stayed with me. The country that named death by overwork is also one of the countries most attentive to designing public systems for a wide range of bodies. And sitting inside that tension taught me something foundational about systems themselves. Every system has an official story, and every system has a lived reality. Those two things are rarely identical. When you live inside the majority assumption, systems become invisible. You move through them without needing to study them. Forms make sense. Interfaces anticipate you. Processes align with your expectations, and even your mistakes are often recoverable. That invisibility is privilege. But when you live outside the assumed center, the system never disappears. You are always reading it, always translating it, always calculating where the edges are. You notice the gap between what the process says should happen and what actually happens for someone in your particular position. 15 years of navigating systems from outside taught me something no conference keynote could. Every system contains an imagined user within its design. Someone built it. Someone decided what constituted normal. Someone unconsciously optimized for a particular body, language, behavior pattern, cultural assumption, or social context. And every person who falls outside that imagined center experiences friction differently. Not necessarily because the system is malicious. Most of the time, it is not. Usually, the friction is invisible to the people designing the architecture because they have never had to navigate it from the outside. That is why lived experience matters in governance work. Navigating systems from outside develops a particular kind of literacy. You learn how to detect failures hidden beneath aggregate metrics, where a process quietly collapses. That understanding is the foundation of everything I do in AI governance. And AI, by default, is culturally illiterate. Most language models were trained predominantly on English data. A 2024 study from the University of the Witwatersrand found that AI systems produce explanations optimized primarily for Western populations. A 2026 study from the University of Puget Sound found that AI systems consistently reinterpret local cultural concepts through Western frameworks. The tools may speak your language, but they are still thinking with an American mind. That same imbalance exists in visual recognition and avatar systems. AI models perform best for the people most represented in the training data. Everyone else experiences distortion. My voice clone experiment made that impossible to ignore. I now have a voice clone that is usable. Not excellent, not fully me, but functional enough for basic production. A trained listener would hear the difference immediately. The cadence is slightly flattened, the emotional resonance thinner, the tonal texture cleaner and lighter. It sounds adjacent to me. Reaching even that level required an extraordinary amount of adaptation. I tested 11 different prompt structures across multiple microphones, recording distances, and 3 separate platforms. That matters. Because accessibility is not truly accessibility if only highly technical users can successfully navigate the system. And the skin tone rendering issue remains unresolved. Across every avatar platform I tested, the systems consistently rendered me lighter than I actually am. The farther you exist from that center, the more the system subtly pulls you toward it. The recommendations emerging are straightforward. First, demographic performance disclosure requirements should exist for AI vendors, not aggregate accuracy scores, demographic breakdowns. Because if a platform consistently masculinizes dark-skinned Black women or racially misidentifies users, those are not edge cases. They are material failures. Second, accessibility and accommodation testing must include the populations most impacted by underrepresentation. Those most likely to experience failure should be involved before deployment. And third, there must be explicit diversity standards for training data involving human faces and voices. Unnamed standards are unenforceable standards. What Japan taught me, years before I ever formally entered AI governance, is that the outside perspective is not a deficit. It is a diagnostic position. And if ethical AI is genuinely the goal, then those perspectives cannot remain optional. The future of AI governance is about examining who disappears when the default becomes invisible. And this series continues because governance documents are never truly finished. I'm Dr. Dede Tetsubayashi. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.